Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dah wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah. Today we are going to be looking at Surah Azh-Zhariyat, the 51st surah. And today we should be reaching the 27th juz, which begins in ayah 32 of Surah Azh-Zhariyat. That begins the 27th juz and the 53rd hizb. As we know, there are 60 ahzab in the Mus'haf. So this means that there are 7 ahzab remaining. One hizb is 10 pages. The juz is 20. This means that there are 2 hizb in every juz'a. Right? So this is the 53rd hizb in the 27th juz. So that means both the 53rd and 54th hizb are in this juz that's upcoming, which is juz'a qala fama. Juz'a qala fama. Right? And that is starting on the 31st ayah of Surah Azh-Zhariyat. Right? So, the Imam Ibn Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, in his ul-Masir Fi Ilm it-Tafsir, he tells us, quote, Surah Azh-Zhariyat is a Meccan surah by consensus. The Exalted One, he says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, وَالذَّارِيَاتِ ذَرْوًا فَالْحَامِلَاتِ وِقْرًا فَالْجَارِيَاتِ يُسْرًا فَالْمُقَسِّمَاتِ أَمْرًا إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَصَادِقٌ وَإِنَّ الدِّينَ لَوَاقِعٌ وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْحُبُكِ إِنَّكُمْ لَفِي قَوْلٍ مُخْتَلِفٍ يُؤْفَكُ عَنْهُ مَنْ أُفِكَ قُتِلَ الْخَرَّاصُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي غَمْرَةٍ سَاهُونَ يَسْأَلُونَ أَيَّانَ يَوْمُ الدِّينِ يَوْمَ هُمْ عَلَى النَّارِ يُفْتَنُونَ ذُوقُوا فِتْنَتَكُمْ هَذَا الَّذِي كُنتُمْ بِهِ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونٍ آخِذِينَ مَا آتَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَبْلَ ذَلِكَ مُحْسِنِينَ كَانُوا قَلِيلًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ مَا يَهْجَعُونَ وَبِالْأَسْحَارِ هُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ آيَاتٌ لِلْمُوقِنِينَ وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ فَوَرَبِّ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ مثل ما أنكم تنطقون هل أتاك حديث ضيف إبراهيم المكرمين إذ دخلوا عليه فقالوا سلاما قال سلام قوم منكرون فراغ إلى أهله فجاء بعجل سمين فقربه إليهم قال ألا تأكلون فأوجس منهم خيفة قالوا لا تخف وبشروه بغلام عليم فأقبلت امرأته في صرة فصكت وجهها وقالت عجوز عقيم قالوا كذلك قال ربك إنه هو الحكيم العليم. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, most compassionate. By the searing winds, by the clouds that carry the winds, by the matters that are brought to be. Indeed, the angels bringing about the affairs bring witness of the news. You have been promised something that is true, that shall come to pass. The day of resurrection shall come to be. By the sky and the possessor of its raised graces. You have a word that is differing among yourselves. And regarding the matter, you are in dispute, belying one another. The Kharrasun have been demolished and laid in curse. Those who in the coming judgment are heedless. They ask, when shall be the day of resurrection? A day in which they shall be put to trial by the fire. They shall be told, taste of the trial which has come to you. This is that which you were hastening on. Those who are pious are in gardens and springs, taking of that which their Lord has given them. And before that time they had been ones of excellence. They in the night sleep very little, and in the daytime they give glorification and seek forgiveness. Their wealth is rendered the rights to both the ones who ask of their right and the one who is silent. And in the earth are signs for those who are certain. And in themselves there are also signs. Do you not see? In the sky is your sustenance, and that which you've been promised. By the Lord of the sky and the earth, indeed it is true. In the likeness of that which you speak of, you've been given. Have you not been given the news of the guest of Ibrahim, these noble guests indeed, when they came into his presence, saying, peace be unto you. And he said, peace as well to you. There are people denying the truth. He went back to his people, Ibrahim, and brought a sheep to slaughter that was fattened. After the slaughtering, he brought it to them, saying, will you not eat? But when they did not, he recoiled from them in fear. They said, do not fear. And they gave him glad tidings of a knowledgeable and noble youth to come. His wife, in overhearing this, slapped her face in wonder with her hands, saying, shall it be that a barren woman gives birth? And they said, likewise such is the case. And such is what your Lord has said. He is the all-wise, the all-knowing. Surah Azh-Zhariyat, ayat 1 to 30. When the Exalted One mentions the winds in the first ayah, وَالذَّارِيَاتِ ذَرْوَةً, it means the winds that bear dust and all other matters. And these winds are they're being carried out. So whatever is carried in the wind, whether it be dust or all other things, Allah is swearing by that. And then he says, the promise you've been given is true, meaning the Lord of the winds, the Lord of that which is carried in the winds, is giving you a true promise. فَالْحَامِلَاتِ وِقْرًا, the clouds which carry abundant water. فَالْجَارِيَاتِ يُسْرًا. Those matters which are carried along the winds, which refers to boats, which make their pathway along the water, using the wind as a way of pushing and pulling themselves. وَالْمُقَسِّمَاتِ أَمْرًا. And those who bring the matters to fruition that Allah has commanded them to do. Ibn al-Sa'ib has said, the muqassimat being referred to in this ayah are 4 in number. So these bringers of orders of their Lord are 4 in number. And these bringers of commands are the very leaders. The first is Jibreel alayhi salam. He is the bringer of revelation and the bringer of wrath. The second is Mikael. The angel Mikael, alayhi salam, he is the bringer of sustenance and mercy. Now, with Mikael being the bringer of sustenance and mercy, that makes him the second. The third is Israfil. Israfil's 2 responsibilities are bearing the horn of the day of resurrection and also bearing the preserved tablet. Now, with Israfil being the bearer of the horn of the day of resurrection and the preserved tablet, this makes him the third of the 4. The fourth is the angel Azrail alayhi salam. The angel Azrail alayhi salam is the chief among the angels. He is the chief among the angels that take the souls of the deceased. And as Azrail is the chief of the angels that take the souls of the deceased, this makes him the 4th of these 4. Now, Allah has sworn by these because if you look at all of these 4 angels and what they do, they all indicate the power of Allah and His might. And so when the Exalted One mentions these, it is to indicate His might and His power. And then when he says what you've been promised is true, meaning all of what these four angels represent, they're all indicating something, which is what? The reward and the punishment on the day of resurrection to come. So all of that which you have been promised, what these angels have brought, what they've indicated, all of that is true. The day of resurrection shall come to pass, and so shall the reckoning. Now the expression lawaqi' means that it shall come to pass. It is in an active tense. By the sky, which bears its nobility and highness. Now this has been recited by Umar ibn al-Khattab and Abdur-Rahman as, instead of وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْحُبُكِ, it has been recited as ذَاتِ الْحِبْكِ. Whereas Uthman ibn Affan al-Sha'bi, Abu al-Aliya, Abu Hayat have recited as ذَاتِ الْحِبْكِ. But Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Ibn Abbas, Abu Raja, and Ibn Abi Abla have recited as Hubk. Ibn Mas'ud and Ikrimah have recited as Habak. Abu Darda, Abu Al-Jawza, Abu Mutawakkil, and Abu Imran Al-Jawni and Asim Al-Jahdari have said Habik. However, other authorities recited as Hubuk. Now the Hubuk here is talking about the fact that the sky covers over. It is a noble creation. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Qatada. It also indicates that the sky is an insulator over the earth. And that it is also an ornamenter of the planet. It is something extra. It's not from the planet itself. This was been mentioned by Mujahid and Sa'id ibn Jubayr. Al-Hasan al-Basri also mentions that the expression hubuk is the plural of another word used, habik, used to refer to stars. So by the sky that has in it stars. This has been mentioned by Al-Hasan al-Basri along with Ad-Dahaq and others. In addition to this, the sky has within it pathways of the winds and the waters. Abdullah ibn Amr has said that وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتُ الْحُبُكِ, this particular sky is referring to the seventh sky. And when He, Allah, is saying, indeed you, meaning the people of Mecca, are in a dispute of words, meaning about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're in a dispute of words. Why? Because some of them are saying he's a poet. Some are saying that he is demon possessed. Regarding the Quran, some of them are saying it is magic. Some of them are saying it is soothsaying and other things. Others have been hindered from faith. Their lies have hindered others from the truth. The Khurrasun have been cursed. The Khurrasun means the liars who say that the Prophet ﷺ is a magician, a liar, or a poet. There is no knowledge for such ones. Now the Kharrasun, specifically, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says that refers to the astrologers. Al-Ambadi has said, keep in mind that Allah says, قُتِلَ الْخَرَّاسُونَ. The Kharrasun, literally, قُتِلَ means killed. But in this sense, قُتِلَ means cursed. May they be destroyed. Because someone who is killed is wiped out in the same way that someone being cursed is. And those who are in their blindness, the blindness here means blindness and ignorance of the hereafter. They are heedless. So they are not awake to it, and their hearts are dead. They ask, when shall be the day of resurrection? When is this day? So they're saying this not because they're seeking information, but out of mockery and denial. And then He, Allah, informs them of that day when He says it is a day in which they shall be in the fire. That day. Now, yuftanun means being put to the test. But in this sense, it refers to the fact that they're being put to test by what? Well, by the fire. And how are they being put to test by the fire? They are being scorched and burned and punished. It's being said to them, taste, dhuqu. This is in the plural form, which is known as the siqat al-jama', where Allah is addressing them and saying, now taste it. The trial that you are being made to feel because of your denial is mentioned by Ibn Abbas. Feel it scorching, as said by Mujahid, Abu Ubaidah. So here, the statement has been completed where Allah has commanded them. This is that which you were hastening on. Meaning, when they said in the earthly life out of mockery, bring on the day of resurrection, we want to see it. This is now that which you hastened on. And when the Exalted One is said, the pious are in gardens and also have access to springs, this is the promise that Allah has made to the people of the paradise. And we've already discussed this in Surah Al-Baqarah, in our commentary of Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, ayat 25, and Surah Al-Hijr, the 15th surah, ayah 45. They shall be taking hold of in the gardens and in the springs from what their Lord gave them. So whatever Allah gave them of His nobility and His generosity, they shall have that. Beforehand, they had shown excellence in their deeds. They had been acting according to what He, Allah, commanded them of the compulsory actions. And they had been discharging His commands. They had been obedient. And then all this was mentioned by Ibn Abbas. And they had little sleep in the night and exerted themselves in worship. So here it refers to the fact that they slept little of the night and exerted themselves in the worship of Allah, as said by Anas ibn Malik and Abu al-Aliya. It also means that these people, these worshippers, in a more specific sense, Anas ibn Malik and Abu al-Aliya said, these pure worshippers are the people that didn't sleep between Maghrib and Isha, but they stayed awake, engaged in some goodness. And when they did sleep in the night, they only slept a little bit. And there are very few people who can do this. This was mentioned by Muqatil and Ad-Dahaq. So little in the night did they sleep. As said by Al-Hasan al-Basri, Al-Ahnaf ibn Qais, Al-Zuhri. And in the daytime, they sought forgiveness from their Lord. We've already mentioned istighfar in Surah Al-Imran, the 3rd Surah, ayat 17. In their wealth, they gave their right, meaning the nasib, the portion. And when the portion reaches its time, meaning when the zakah reaches its nisab period, they gave that. So that which was given, they gave it. Whether it was to a near relative or to a guest, and they carried it. Now the mahroom is someone who is a guest or a family member or a stranger and does not ask for any sustenance. The mahroom asks for nothing. So he has to be given it. This is mentioned by Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu. Now some have said this ayah is referring to all types of charity and not just zakah. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas. However, the second position is that it is necessarily referring to Zakat al-Fitr. This was mentioned by Qatada and Muhammad ibn Sirin. The sa'il, the asker, is the one who is looking for assistance. So the mahroom, the one that's not the asker, is the one who may not have any share in the wealth of the Muslims. And he is in straitened circumstances, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas. Although Ibrahim al-Nakha'i said, he's the one that may not have any share in the war treasure. Or he's the one who doesn't have any wealth to speak of, as said by Mujahid and Ata. The mahroom might be the one who, although he has a business where he trades in or sustenance, he is still grossly in need. He may be the poor Muslim, said by Muhammad ibn Ali. The one who suffices himself and he doesn't ask for anything, although he suffers and struggles, as said by Qatada and Az-Zuhri. This same one might also fight in battle and has no war treasure given to him. He has no share, as mentioned by Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad ibn Al-Hanafiyyah. The one whose crops might have been destroyed, but chooses not to go further in discussion or asking for anything, said by Ibn Zayd. He might be the servant, said by Al-Mawardi. It may even be in the case of the mahroom who hasn't asked for anything, it might even be the dog who is the assistant to his master in some training, as said by Umar al-Abdul Aziz. But Ash-Sha'bi has said, my colleagues know that the mahroom is the one that's most in need of help. Now, in my understanding as the author, the most dominant opinion to me is what was said by Qatada and Az-Zuhri regarding the mahroom. Because the mahroom, Allah is making a comparison between them, which will mean the mahroom must be the opposite of the sa'il, meaning that he doesn't ask. So the mahroom, in my understanding, means the one who does not ask for help. So the people need to seek out this one. The one who doesn't ask, they need to seek him out and give him that which he needs. And he needs to be sought for this access. Now this ayah about the Sa'il and the Mahroom, as this is a surah that is Meccan, this was abrogated by the ayah of zakah, as some have said. However, this isn't authentic because this is an ayah that presupposes zakah being given. In the earth are signs, signposts, like mountains, rivers, trees, pastures, and other things like that, for those who certainly believe in Allah, who they know of His creation. And in themselves, there are signs. What signs are there in humanity? When you were a sperm drop. Then after that, you had bones. Then at one point, you were a blood clot. Then a chewed lump of flesh. And other than that, of the different states that people go through in the different forms and colors and dispositions and the different tools and instruments that are required. And then when you have hearing, sight, intellect, and you're able to move around and other things besides this, of the amazing things that happen in the life of the son of Adam. These are the signs in yourselves. Then Allah says, and in yourselves. So this is a required pause. Do you not see? Meaning, don't you reflect how He created you? And you know His might. If you know that He created you like this the first time, He will surely resurrect you in righteousness the second in resurrection. In the sky is your sustenance. رِزْقُكُمْ. Ubay ibn Ka'ab, Humayd, and Abu Hussein al-Asadi recited as Arzaqukum, your sustenances. But Ibn Mas'ud al-Dahaq, Abu Nuhayk recited as Raziqukum, above the sky is your sustainer. But Ibn Muhis and others recited as Rizqukum. Now Rizqukum means in the sky is your sustenance. What is the sustenance? It is rain. Because rain is what causes the sustenance to germinate on earth. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas as well as Mujahid, and it is the dominant position. The second position, the minority position, is that it refers to the paradise, because the paradise is above the sky. So in this sense, fi means above. So the paradise is not here, it is another location, as mentioned by Mujahid. So what you've been promised of good and evil, and both of them, they come from the sky. وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. They're both coming from the sky. That's said by Ibn Abbas and Ibn Ujayh from Mujahid. So if someone holds that it's the paradise, they'll have this understanding regarding the ayah. So in the sky is your sustenance. What you've been promised, it's waiting. Day of resurrection is true. These signs are true. What you've been promised is true. And that which you've been given. Now the ayah, مِثْلَ مَا أَنَّكُمْ تَنْتِقُونَ, likeness of what you speak of. Now, Hamza al-Kasai, Abu Bakr ibn Asim recited as mithlu, but the rest say mithla. So the truth of what you have been promised is coming. And then Allah the Exalted says, have you not heard the news of the guests of Ibrahim who were noble? Now, hal being used here has a sense of immediacy, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas and Muqatil. Have you not heard of the news that's come to you? And those guests came. Now we can see that the word daif being used here. Now the word daif is one of the Arabic words that's called a collective. A collective means a word that does not change its form and can refer to both the plural and the singular. So this is an Arabic collective word. So daif in this sense, how would we know what it was? Based upon what came after, al-mukramun, which would mean that this is a jama. So the noble guests of Ibrahim came to give him glad tidings. Now we mentioned their number in Surah Hud. the 11th surah, ayah 70. Now, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam attempted to honor them, the sheep that he had slaughtered, as discussed by Ibn Abbas and Mujahid. He gave service to them, both he and his wife, of their own time, as mentioned by As-Sudai. And they were noble also in the sight of Allah because they were angels, as said by Abdul Aziz ibn Yahya. And they said, peace. Again, we've discussed this in Surah Hud, ayah 70. We come to a people that are denying, meaning a people that deny the truth. And their denial is because they would not acknowledge the truth that the angels brought us, said by Ibn Abbas. And when the angels gave salam, the people did not accept their salam. These angels came into the direct presence of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam without seeking permission. And that he saw that they had the form of men, but also the form of angels as well, so they were unusual. So he returned to his people to give a fattened sheep to be slaughtered for them. And he brought it near to them so that they might eat from it. But they didn't eat. And he said, will you not eat? Because he was surprised at the disrespect being shown. Because your affair, when you leave eating of that which you've been given, is you're disrespecting your guest. But then he felt fear of them. And that is when he realized who they were. And the angel said they're bringing a ghulam, that is Alim, in Surah Al-Hijr, the 15th Surah 54. His wife, being Sarah, turned away surprised and couldn't accept the news. And slapped her face in surprise and wonder. How will this be? As mentioned by Ibn Abbas. And one authority says that she slapped her face in wonder, referring more importantly to not only the face, but the forehead as well. How could I have a child touching her forehead? And she said, an old barren woman. How could this be the case? This is mentioned in ayah 72 of Surah Hud. And they said, likewise, your Lord has decreed. Meaning that if Allah informs you of a matter, He is all wise, all knowing. And He can turn to the one who is barren and make that one childbearing. So what is your statement? فَمَا خُطْبَتُكُمْ? What is your statement in this regard? Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam said in Surah Al-Hijr, the 15th Surah 57, this is mentioned again. And it is with this that another juz is then started. قَالَ فَمَا خَطَبُكُمْ أَيُّهَا الْمُرْسَلُونَ قالوا إنا أرسلنا إلى قوم مجرمين لنرسل عليهم حجارة من طين مسومة عند ربك للمسرفين فأخرجنا من كان فيها من المؤمنين فما وجدنا فيها غير بيت من المسلمين وتركنا فيها آية للذين يخافون العذاب الأليم وفي موسى إذ أرسلناه إلى فرعون بسلطان مبين فتولى بركنه وقال ساحر أو مجنون فأخذناه وجنوده فنبذناهم في اليم وهو مليم وفي عاد إذ أرسلنا عليهم الريح العقيم ما تذر من شيء أتت عليه إلا جعلته كالرميم وفي ثمود إذ قيل لهم تمتعوا حتى حين فعتوا عن أمر ربهم فأخذتهم الصاعقة وهم ينظرون فما استطاعوا من قيام وكانوا منتصرين وقوم نوح من قبل إنهم كانوا قوما فاسقين والسماء بنيناها بأيد وإنا لموسعون والأرض فرشناها فنعم الماهدون ومن كل شيء خلقنا زوجين لعلكم تذكرون ففروا إلى الله إني لكم منه نذير مبين ولا تجعلوا مع الله إلها آخر إني لكم منه نذير مبين. He said in reply, so then what is your statement, O you messengers that bring news? They said, we have been sent to a criminal people, and we have been commanded to send against them stones of baked clay from the sky. The command in the sight of your Lord is for those who transgress. And we have been told to remove from that very place the believers. And we did not find in that city any believers except for one house of the Muslims. Now we have left a sign therein for those who fear the punishment to come. And remember Musa when we sent him to the Pharaoh with clear evidence. And he turned away with his retinue and he said, look, this is a magician, well versed. We took a hold of him and his armies, and they were laid low in the embankment, while he was left as a sign. And in Ad, when we sent upon them the wind, the searing wind, nothing was spared that this wind came upon, except that it suffered downfall. In Thamud, when it was said to them, you have a little bit of time, they grew boastful regarding the matter of their Lord. And the blast came to them while they were looking on. And they were not able to withstand it. They could not even stand up. And they received no help. The people of Nuh from beforehand, remember them. They were a people who were rebellious sinners. The sky, we fashioned it in power. And indeed, we are its preservers. The earth, it was spread out. And how noble is that? And of everything that we've created is pairs, so that you might reflect. So flee to Allah. Indeed, I am a warner, an open and clear warning to you from Allah. And do not make with Allah another God. Indeed, I have come as a warner to you, open and clear. So do not do so. Surah Al-Dhariyat, the 51st surah, ayat 31 to 51. When the Exalted One has mentioned this ayah, what do you say regarding this matter? This was already discussed in Surah Al-Hijr, the 15th surah, 57. And then the angel said, baked stones of clay from the sky. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh says these baked clay stones are hard like brimstone. Sent down from the side of your Lord. This is mentioned in Surah Hud, ayah 83. And for those who transgress is the penalty. Ibn Abbas says those who transgress are the idol worshippers. And we were to bring out whoever was in it, meaning whoever was in the cities of Nabiyyina Lut alayhi salam from the believers. Again, we mentioned this in ayah 82 of Surah Hud. We did not find other than the house of Muslims, one house of Muslims there. Now these are referring to Nabiyyina Lut alayhi salam and his daughters, his two daughters. And Allah describes them with Iman and Islam. Because someone cannot be a believer except that they're a Muslim. And we have left therein a sign for those who fear Allah from the wrath of Allah. We've left their destruction as a sign of Allah's punishment. This was mentioned in Surah Al-Ankabut, the 29th Surah, 35. And we also mentioned the place of that area. And in Musa, and remember, when we sent Musa to the Pharaoh with clear evidence, meaning with an outward proof, but the Pharaoh turned away with his retinue. Now this was said by Mujahid, Abu Ubaidah, and others, that is with his retinue. And he said, the Pharaoh said, a magician. So he said this to Nabiyyina Musa alayhi salam. This is a magician or a madman or demon possessed. Now we've already mentioned much of this in Surah Al-Araf, 7th Surah, ayah 136. Surah Al-Safat, 37th Surah, ayah 142. And in Ad, meaning in their destruction, is a sign when the searing wind was sent over them. Sa'id ibn Musayyib said, in the end of their affair, so they were devastated, and they were left to be, after a number of nights, like blades of grass. Blades of grass, when it dries and becomes hardened, nothing remains of it. And of Thamud is a sign. When it's said to them, wait for a little while until the time comes. Because this is the threat that they were promised. And the time period of your Lord is coming. So the blast overtook them, meaning the punishment. And the death came from the blast brought by the angel Mikail alayhi salam. And they were looking on when this happened. Meaning they saw it with their own eyes. They saw their own destruction. Or it was shown to them, according to some authorities, in the grave. And you were not able to stand up from that penalty. And the punishment, they were trying to seek help from it. The people of Nuh came before. So this penalty that came to the people of Nabiyyina Nuh alayhi salam, it came upon them, as was the command of Allah. And we overtook him, when it mentions the Pharaoh and his armies, because they were drowned. And likewise, in the time of Nabiyyina Nuh alayhi salam, his people were drowned by the sky that we built and we fashioned it. with power. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says, and Mujahid and Qatada and the rest of the scholars of commentary, that this refers to power. And we have made sure the sustenance is spread by rain, as said by Al-Hasan, because the sustenance is coming from the sky. Thus, sustenance coming from the sky is rain that fuels the earth, as said by Zajjaj. The Exalted One says, and the earth that we spread out. And how noble is that which has been spread. So this which has been given, that's been spread out, meaning that it's been spread out so that people can live on it, in the land, in the different lands on it. Muqatil has said, to be spread out means to be given a spread to be made far-reaching. Now, Qatada said that the actual planet of Earth is 20,000 Arabic miles across. And Allah knows best of this regard. Then Allah says, of everything that's been created, there are pairs. Either two branches of it, or two species of it. That could be in the case of male and female, land and water, night and day, sweetness and bitterness, light and darkness, and similar things. So that you might reflect, meaning so that you might know that the creator of all pairs is one, although the pairs are many. So flee to Allah. Now flee to Allah from what? His penalty. And flee to Him for what? Repentance. Repentance from your sins. So flee to Him from the penalty for kufr and disobedience, so that you might repent and receive a reward and be obedient and have Iman. The Exalted One then says, كَذَلِكَ مَا أَتَى الَّذِينَ مِن قَبْلِهِم مِّن رَّسُولٍ إِلَّا قَالُوا سَاحِرٌ أَوْ مَجْنُونٌ أَتَوَاصَوْا بِهِ بَلْ هُمْ قَوْمٌ طَاغُونَ فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ فَمَا أَنْتَ بِمَلُومٍ وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون ما أريد منهم من رزق وما أريد أن يطعمون إن الله هو الرزاق ذو القوة المتين فإن للذين ظلموا ذنوبا مثل ذنوب أصحابهم فلا يستعجلون فويل للذين كفروا من يومهم الذي يوعدون. And likewise, what was given to those before them of a messenger, nothing came of such except that they said, a magician, a madman, someone possessed of demon. Can they enjoin such a thing? On the contrary, such are a people that are oppressive and transgress. Turn away from them. You are not in charge of their affair. And remember for indeed the remembrance benefits the believers. I've not created the men and jinn except so that they might worship me. I do not want from them any sustenance. I do not need to be fed. Indeed, He, Allah, is the sustainer, the possessor of complete power. And indeed, for those that oppress are sins just like the sins of their companions. So do not hasten any such thing on in that regard. What they hasten on shall come to them. Woe be to those who reject faith from a day in which they were promised from before. Surah Al-Dhariyat, the 51st surah, ayat 52 to 60. When the Exalted One is mentioned, likewise, meaning, likewise, your people denied you. And they said, a magician or a madman or one possessed. They, before time, had said this to the prophets that came before. Can they enjoin such a thing? Sufyan, here's this. Can they say and enjoin such a thing? Meaning, how can they deny of the truth that has been brought? Now, this question that's being asked is not being asked for clarification, but for rebuke. And this was mentioned by Abu Ubaidah. They are people transgressing, meaning they transgress the bounds in what they've been given in the earthly life, and they deny of the truth. And the indication here in this ayah refers to the people of Mecca. Turn away from them in their vain pursuits. You are not to be a trustee over them. Your job has been to discharge the revelation. Now, the great majority of scholars of commentary say that this ayah was abrogated. And the reason why they say that this ayah's judgment was abrogated is firstly, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The ayah, so remind, for indeed the remembrance and the reminder benefits the believers. This is the first of their reasons why it's abrogated. The second is that Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th surah, ayah 5, abrogates this. Now, remember and remind them means to preach the faith. That's said by Muqatil. And remind them of the days of Allah. The days of Allah meaning His punishment, as well as His mercy that are mentioned, as said by Azh-Zhariyat. I've not created men and jinn except to worship me. This establishes the fact that He has not commanded them except that they might worship Him, as said by Ali ibn Abi Talib and Azh-Zhariyat, so that they might affirm of the truthfulness of His deserving of worship, whether with obedience or by force, which will come on the day of resurrection, which it will be too late at that point, as said by Ibn Abbas. And then when Allah says, in another ayah, Surah Al-Zukhruf, the 43rd surah, ayah 87, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَتَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. If you ask them who created them, they would have said Allah. But this is after the time where it's too late. Thirdly, this ayah gives a specific reference to the believers. So Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib said, I have not created who's to worship me, except that he shall return to me as a believer. So that means it's only for the people who will obey him that will worship him in truth and in obedience. So those that worship him in truth and obedience are the only ones that worship him willingly. Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la has said, the meaning of this ayah is specific and not general. Because The judgment being given are those that willingly enter under it and who are able to obey. The infants and the insane don't enter under the judgments of this ayah, even if they were human beings, because they are not in a state of those who have ability and can enter under it. So they are only those who have the ability to do so and who enter under the judgment of those who obey, meaning that Allah has made them believers and that they can obey. Likewise, the unbelievers don't belong under this judgment, because Allah the Exalted has said, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. And already we've created for the great fire many jinn and men. Surah Al-Araf, the 7th Surah, 179. So whoever was created for eternal judgment and for the great fire was not created for worship. No. He was not created for worship. Such a one. And so the one that was created for eternal judgment and for the great fire wasn't created for worship. Further to this, I've not created men and jinn except that they might worship me, just doesn't mean the worship that is known in the sense of prayer, but it also refers to humility and submission. Because all the creation are humble and submit to the ordainment of Allah, and nothing can leave from that which Allah has ordained. Now, this is only the position that can be brought forward and stated. So I've not created men and jinn except that they might worship me, because this worship is wide-ranging. Then when Allah said, and I don't seek from them sustenance, meaning I don't desire for them to sustain themselves, only I can sustain them. And I don't need anyone to offer me food, meaning that they might feed anyone from my creation, because I am the sustainer. The creation are all needy towards Allah. And whoever feeds the needy, then he has fed them. And this expression being used is further brought to light in an authentic hadith from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a hadith Qudsi, where Allah has spoken. He said on the day, and he shall say on the day of resurrection, "Son of Adam, I fed you, but you did not feed me." What that meant is you did not feed my slave. When Allah is referring to being the sustainer, He is the sustainer of the entire creation in whatever sustenance they need, whether it is their existence or also their food source. Al-Khattabi has said, He is the trustee. He, Allah, being the sustainer, is the one responsible for sustaining the entire creation and everything with what it needs. The powerful, the mighty, the stern in retribution, and His power, by Allah referring to Himself as Al-Mateen, it means His power is never stopped or removed. And this is one of the attributes of Allah. And He, Allah, by having the attribute Al-Mateen, means He lays low all others, but He Himself is never laid low. Now, this is one of the attributes of Allah. just as much as Allah refers to a preaching and a word that comes from Him. فَمَنْ جَاءَهُ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِ. So then who has come to him with a clear preaching from his Lord? Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, ayat 275. So the clear preaching is from Allah. Now, although it's in the feminine tense, this does not attribute any gender to Allah. When Allah possesses an attribute that may have a feminine tense, a feminine form, does not incline any gender to Allah, but rather it's referring to the word itself. Indeed, those who oppress, meaning the idol worshippers of Mecca, their sins and their portion of the punishment will be just like the sins of those who were destroyed before, like the people of Nuh, like the people of Ad, like those of Thamud, and others. Now the expression Adh-Dhunub means sin. Dhunub comes from a word that signifies a large pail that is carried. Because when one commits sins, they bear that burden of sin. And the sin is carried like a large bucket from a well until it is relieved, in this case by forgiveness. So let them not hasten on the judgment. This judgment will be delayed until the day of resurrection. This is the day which they have been promised. And a precursor to that day that they've been hastening on, that Allah told them not to hasten on, a precursor to that day was the Battle of Badr, in which they suffered their first true setback. Allah the Exalted then brings us to Surah At-Tur, the 52nd surah. This surah, by ijma', is a Meccan surah. Close quote. Inshallah, we will pause here, and inshallah, when we finish salah, we'll come back and complete the rest of our tafsir. Sahih? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasul al-Kareem. Wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, before we left, we had come to Surah At-Tur, Surah of the Mountain. We discussed part of this before, that there are some words in the Quran that are not Arabic. Tur, this word Tur is Aramaic, which does indeed mean mountain. Surah At-Tur is the 52nd surah. And we are still in the 27th juz. And we are we are a quarter of the way through the 53rd hizb. Now, the Imam, rahimahullah, he explained to us that it is a Meccan surah, and he begins by saying, quote, by consensus, this is a Meccan surah. And Surah At-Tur begins with Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Wat-Tur wa kitabim mastur fi raqqin manshur wal baytil ma'mur والسقف المرفوع والبحر المسجور إن عذاب ربك لواقع ما له من دافع يوم تمور السماء مورا وتسير الجبال سيرا فويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين هم في خوض يلعبون يوم يدعون إلى نار جهنم داعا هذه النار التي كنتم بها تكذبون أفسحر هذا أم أنتم لا تبصرون اصلوها فاصبروا أو لا تصبروا سواء عليكم إنما تجزون ما كنتم تعملون إن المتقين في جنات ونعيم فاكهين بما آتاهم ربهم ووقاهم ربهم عذاب الجحيم كلوا واشربوا هنيئا بما كنتم تعملون متكئين على سرر مصفوفة وزوجناهم بحور عين والذين آمنوا واتبعتهم ذريتهم بإيمان ألحقنا بهم ذريتهم وما ألتناهم من عملهم من شيء كل امرئ بما كسب رهين وأمددناهم بفاكهة ولحم مما يشتهون يتنازعون فيها كأسا لا لغو فيها ولا تأثيم ويطوف عليهم غلمان لهم كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون وأقبل بعضهم على بعض يتساءلون قالوا إنا كنا قبل في أهلنا مشفقين فمن الله علينا ووقانا عذاب السموم إنا كنا من قبل ندعوه إنه هو البر الرحيم فذكر فما أنت بنعمة ربك بكاهن ولا مجنون أم يقولون شاعر نتربص به ريب المنون قل تربصوا فإني معكم من المتربصين. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the compassionate. By the mountain and the inscribed parchment in an unfurled scroll, by the most frequented house, by the raised roof, by the boundless ocean. Indeed, the punishment of your Lord will certainly come to pass. There is no defense from it. A day in which the sky shall pass away. The mountains shall go away like a mirage. Woe on that day be to the deniers, those who are in dispute playing about. A day in which they shall be called in rows to the fire with a mighty calling. This is the fire which you were denying. Is this magic? Or do you not see the fire that you're coming to? Scorch them. Await the time and be patient on it. Or don't be patient. It is the same for you. You shall certainly be punished on account of that which you did. The pious are in gardens and in felicity, enjoying of that which their Lord gave them, and their Lord has protected them and swept them away from the punishment of the great fire. Eat, drink, and be felicitous, along with that which you used to do, reclining on thrones that are raised in rows. We shall marry them to maidens, those who believe, and their progeny followed them in faith. Their progeny shall follow along with them, and they shall not lose any of that which they had done before. Every individual shall have according to what he has earned, and we shall spread out for them of the fruits and the meats of that which they so desire. There shall be passed around among them a goblet in which there shall be no intoxication on those who drink from it, nor any sin that shall accrue. There shall gather around them youths that shall come to them, resembling splendid pearls. They shall be facing one another, asking, saying, before this time we were among our people and fearful, but Allah favored us and protected us from the fire of punishment. Before this we called on Allah, and He is the everlastingly righteous, the compassionate. So remember, you are not by the favor of your Lord. You are neither a soothsayer nor demon-possessed. Or do they say that he is a poet, and they are in doubt about the matter, waiting? Tell them, go ahead and wait. I am waiting for the end result with you. Surah At-Tur, the 52nd surah, ayat 15 to 31. Ayat 1 to 31. When the Exalted One says, by the mountain, this is an oath by the mountain in which Allah spoke to Musa, alayhi salam, the prophet. It is in the land of Midian. It is sometimes also called a land of Zubayr. When he says the inscribed parchment or scroll, it has been said that this is referring to the preserved tablet. This has been said by Ibn Abbas. It is also said to refer to the books of deeds of all the children of Adam, according to the mention of Muqatil and Azh-Zhariyat. Another group say that it refers to the Torah, while another says it's referring to the Quran. And both of these statements have been narrated by Al-Mawardi. The unfurled scroll by the frequented house. Now, the frequented house, there are two things being referred to. Firstly, we need to remember that it is in one of the seven skies, meaning universes. But which one? It has been said, firstly, that it is in the seventh sky. This is based on a hadith narrated by Anas from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Tabari, who mentioned in another connected chain from Al-Bukhari and Muslim that the frequented house is the prototype of the Kaaba that the angels have in the seventh sky. The second position is that it is in the sixth sky, as was narrated by Ali ibn Abi Talib in a collection of At-Tabari in his commentary. The third understanding is that it is the lowest sky, which is the one that we are in. This is mentioned by Abu Hurairah in a connected chain from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says, this Al-Bayt al-Ma'mur is the prototype of the Kaaba for the angels. Every day, 70,000 angels make Hajj to it. Now, in saying that every day 70,000 angels make Hajj to it, and those angels that come go out and never repeat. This carries on until the day of resurrection. It is sometimes referred to as Abdur-Rahman. Al-Rabi' ibn Anas said, the frequented house, although being a prototype, also refers to a section of the Kaaba in the time of Nabiyuna Adam alayhi salam. And it is the exact spot that the Kaaba sits on. When the time of Nabiyuna Nuh alayhi salam came and he commanded the people to make Hajj and they refused, when the flood came, the water rose up and inundated the area. The Kaaba was caused to float above that area, and then held in a spot in the lower sky. Al-Hasan al-Basri and Abu Ubaidah say that one of the reasons why the frequented house is referred to as such is because of the huge amount of visitation by the angels. The raised sky, or the raised roof, was-saqf al-marfu' refers to the sky, as is said by the vast majority in Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. While Al-Rabi' and a small company say that it refers to the throne. The Bahr here, the expansive ocean or sea, wal-Bahr masjur. One statement is that it refers to the body of water under the throne. Its water is thick and opaque. And after the first blowing of the horn, for 40 mornings, the slaves in their graves shall be receiving something from it. This was said by Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Also, it's been said that it's referring to the body of water that covers the whole world. This was mentioned by Al-Mawardi. Masjur in Arabic, expansive, can mean filling, as said by Al-Hasan, Abu Salih, Ibn Sa'ib, and all the grammarians. It also means burning, because the root sajara means to burn. It was mentioned by Mujahid, Ibn Zayd, Shamr ibn Atiyah, and others. Also, it's been said that on account of the dryness that shall result when the water dries up on the day that is coming, it is called the blazed ocean. This was mentioned by Abu Aliyah. So the water of the oceans at some point will go, and there won't remain one drop of it. This was mentioned by Mujahid and goes hand in hand with a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah shall turn the oceans of the world into fire, and that fire shall be thrown into the great fire. This also, masjur, is connected to the waters being intermingled and of different qualities. Some is sweet, some is salty, and by sweet we mean fresh. Fresh water versus salt water. As said by Al-Rabi' ibn Anas, and Allah swore by these things to warn people of His grandeur and the punishment of the idol worshippers that is coming. And then when he says, the punishment of your Lord shall come to pass, meaning it's coming in the hereafter, then he clarifies when this will be, and he gives signs to the run-up of this by saying, the day in which the sky shall pass away with a shout. It's mentioned by Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, Al-Farra, Ibn Qutayb, and Az-Zajjaj. And this Tamuru and Maura means heavy movement to where it's sent away. And it goes by the command of Allah. Now, we've already mentioned some of this in Surah An-Naml, ayah 88, up until the statement. Those who are in doubt regarding their Lord and disputing. Meaning, they're disputing at the statement of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by denying, mocking, playing around by his remembrance. But woe be to them of the day in which they shall be called. They shall be called on that day. Now, the expression being used is emphatic. And the same expression is used in Surah Al-Ma'un, ayat 2. Yadda'u. Yadu'u. Where here is yadda'u and yadu'u. This same root is an emphatic. It's used to express something. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh says, this ayah is making passing reference to the hadith that discusses fire garlands being placed around their neck, and they're being grabbed by their feet and heads and tossed into the great fire on their faces. And it will be said, this is the fire which you were denying in the earthly life. Is this punishment which you are experiencing and seeing, is this magic? You claim that the messengers were magicians. Or do you not see the fire that is in front of you that you've been thrown into? Scorch them. So these people that denied and said the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a magician, they shall be scorched, and they shall be rebuked. And this expression isloha, meaning let the fire become harsh, let them blaze up. Can you be patient with the wrath or not be patient? It is the same. You shall be rewarded for that which you've done. He, Allah, then describes for the believers what comes after, that they shall be joyous. Now some recite this as fakihin, some fakihin. We've already discussed this in Surah Yasin, the 36th Surah, ayah 55. And he pushes them and keeps them protected from the great fire. We've discussed some of this in Surah Al-Bakri, the 2nd Surah, ayah 119. Eat. So it will be said to them, eat and drink in safety. Meaning, you are safe from any illness that comes by some people eating different types of food. Some people suffer illnesses. But here Allah is saying, eat and drink without any fear of illness. Take a hold of this. Now we've discussed these foods of the paradise in Surah An-Nisa, the 4th Surah 4, in some detail, and we've discussed the language of some of this. Then he mentioned their state at the time of their eating and drinking, that they are reclining on thrones, in rows. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari rahimahullah has said, so they are facing each other on thrones, in rows, on the sides of one another. The rest of this ayah we've already discussed in Surah Al-Dukhan, ayah 54. And then when he says, those who believe, when he mentions those who believe and their progeny follow them in faith, their dhurriya, when they follow them in faith, they go with them in the paradise. Even if they didn't reach the high rank of their progenitors, Allah will still honor them, exalted be He, on account of their believing ancestors by gathering the believing children with them. This was mentioned by Ibn Abbas. And the progeny following them with faith, meaning that the faith reaches them and they believe. And some of these believers are small and they die before reaching accountability. But they will see them again. So the children of the elders follow them in faith. And the children of those small ones follow them in the faith of their fathers from beforehand. So the child is judged by the Islam of his parents, if he is judged to be a parent. The one whose parents are Muslim, the child is judged to be as such till he reaches accountability. And likewise in other cases. And then Allah says, and their progeny follow them in faith of their fathers, so they're entered into the paradise. And this has been mentioned from Ibn Abbas. And they are given the best of matters, the best of things. We've already mentioned much of this in Surah Al-Hujurat, Ayah 14. Every individual is given what he has brought. So no one is taken on account of the sin of someone else. Whereas, because no one is taken on account of the sin of someone else, it should be taken that one is responsible for his deeds. Ibn Abbas has said, they shall have a portion, a double portion of that goodness that they've been given. And they shall be given all of that which they seek. And they shall be given a drink from a cup or goblet. Now we've already mentioned this in Surah Al-Safat, the 37th Surah, Ayah 45, in which there shall be no intoxication in it, nor shall it cause sinful actions after digesting it. So what this means is that, according to Ibn Qutaybah, those that drink from it, their intellects won't go and they won't become intoxicated by consuming it and commit sinful actions, like what normally happens when people drink certain drinks in the earthly life. This will not happen in the hereafter. No intellects will be taken away. And the young servants shall gather around them in the form of youths, that shall have the appearance and brightness of stringed pearls. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was asked, Prophet of Allah, this servant, how is it that he is serving? What is he serving? To which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the virtue of the one being served over the server is like the virtue of the moon on a full moon night over the rest of the stars in the sky. And this is mentioned by Imam At-Tabari. Close quote. Now what this makes reference to is the servants, because in Arabic you have to remember that the khadim, the one who serves, is given a greater rank. And that's why service, khidmah, is such an important thing in the deen, and especially in Arabic, because khidmah, we believe in the Arab culture that the one that's serving has more rank and honor than the one receiving service, because the one serving is exerting himself. And this is an Arab custom culture. So when the Arabs are hearing that, oh, there will be these youths serving them in the paradise, they're thinking, well, wait a minute, if we're in the paradise and we're being served, that means the people serving us are better than us, because they're thinking with their earthly minds that the server is better than the one being served. The host is better than the guest. That's what they're thinking in their mind. But the Prophet ﷺ, he said, no, the virtue over the one receiving service over the servant is like the favor of the moon on a full moon night over the rest of the stars of the sky. This brings it back home again. Whatever we know in this earthly life is not similar to the hereafter. Or to quote Ibn Abbas in a more succinct statement, there is no similarity between the earthly life and the hereafter except in names. So Allah says in the hereafter there's light. Here there's light. That's the only similarity they have. That's it. Allah says there's water in the hereafter. We just finished Surah Muhammad not even that long ago, where Allah said that there's honey in the hereafter that's smooth to the touch, that doesn't ooze. We don't know of any honey like that in earthly life that does that hasn't been tampered with. We don't know of water that never becomes stale. It doesn't matter under what conditions you keep water. Normally occurring water, when it becomes rocket, standing water, it becomes stale. So the hereafter water, milk that never sours. We don't know of any condition where even milk that's been tampered with, it's been run through the process, it's been boiled, homogenized, pasteurized, and all the other ISED words that you could even think of that has been done to the stuff. Hormones have been put in it. Everything's been put in there, the female hormones, and they take them out, and they put them back in. Then they remove all the fat, then they put them back in. Then they remove the milk fat, then they put it back in. Then they add yeast. Then they add paint thinner sometimes, like in the United States, in certain types of milk. Whatever, it still becomes sour. Whatever's coming in the hereafter is greater, larger, and more unbelievable than what we see here. Right? And this is what the Imam is trying to bring home to us. He then says, quote, "And they shall be facing one another, speaking and asking, remembering the earthly things that happen in this life, of the fear and difficulties they had. They will be saying, oh, when we were with our people in the earthly life, we were afraid of the punishment to come, and Allah favored us with forgiveness and protected us from the penalty of the fire, as Al-Hasan ibn Ali and others have said." And the expression, Adhab as-Samum. Samum is one of the many names of the great fire. And it has to do with, Samum has to do with the breath that it takes on account of its heat from the hadith every winter and every summer. Indeed, we were from beforehand calling on him, Allah, declaring him one and declaring him free from all partners. Indeed, he is the everlastingly righteous. As was mentioned, the truthful one who keeps his promise, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas. The ever subtle, as mentioned by Ibn Abbas. The one who is noble to his slaves and righteous to them, in which his righteousness and nobility over all of his creations undisputed, as mentioned by Abu Sulaiman al-Khattabi. So now remember, preach with this Quran and admonish. You are not, by the favor of your Lord upon you, who gave you prophethood, a soothsayer who claims the unseen and lies, or claims knowledge without revelation. You do not speak except by revelation, not like the unbelievers of Mecca. Or do they say that you are a poet? This is not the case. They are waiting to see what happens, meaning they're waiting for him to die, or they're waiting for things in time to happen or to come to pass, or some tribulation to come. Say, we are waiting right along with you, and we're awaiting your punishment, so that when the punishment comes on the day of Badr with the sword, then it shall be seen. And this is one of the punishments being referred to, is the events of Badr. Some have said that this ayah was abrogated by Surah At-Tur, the 9th Surah 5, but this is not correct. And this can be shown by examining the ayat in context. The Exalted One then says, أَمْ تَأْمُرُهُمْ أَحْلَامُهُمْ بِهَذَا أَمْ هُمْ قَوْمٌ طَاغُونَ أَمْ يَقُولُونَ تَقَوَّلَهُ بَلْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ فَلْيَأْتُوا بِحَدِيثٍ مِثْلِهِ إِن كَانُوا صَادِقِينَ أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ أم عندهم خزائن ربك أم هم المسيطرون أم لهم سلم يستمعون فيه فليأت مستمعهم بسلطان مبين أم له البنات ولكم البنون أم تسألهم أجرا فهم من مغرم مثقلون أم عندهم الغيب فهم يكتبون أم يريدون كيدا فالذين كفروا هم المكيدون أم لهم إله غير الله سبحان الله عما يشركون وإن يروا كسفا من السماء ساقطا يقولوا سحاب مركوم فذرهم حتى يلاقوا يومهم الذي فيه يصعقون يوم لا يغني عنهم كيدهم شيئا ولا هم ينصرون وإن للذين ظلموا عذابا دون ذلك ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون واصبر لحكم ربك فإنك بأعيننا وسبح بحمد ربك حين تقوم ومن الليل فسبحه وأدبار النجوم. Or do you command them with vain and convoluted things such as this? Or are they a people transgressing? Or do they say, he has convoluted it and made it up, but they don't even believe themselves? Then let them break a speech like this if they're truthful. Or were they created from nothing? Or are they creators themselves? Or did they create the skies and the earth? They're not even certain of their own claims. Do they have in their sight the treasures of their Lord? Or are they restricted? Do they have a ladder in which to listen to the comings and goings of things? Let them bring that which they hear with clear authority. Do they have the daughters and they declare? Do they declare for Allah that He has daughters, and yet you have sons in your foolishness? Or do you ask them from some wage that is owed? Or do they have knowledge of the unseen that they write? Or do they seek some plan? Those who reject faith, they are planners. But is there another God that they have besides Allah? Glorified is Allah from that which they associate. If they had seen a piece of the sky fall down, they would have said, "Oh, this is a low-moving passing cloud." Leave them alone until they meet the day in which they shall be swooning at the sight of it. A day in which there shall be no benefit their vain plans and fancies, nor shall they receive any help. Indeed, for those who oppress is a punishment besides that, but most of them don't know. Be patient for the judgment of your Lord, for indeed they are under our trust. And give glory with praise to your Lord whenever you stand. And in the night, glorify Him at the time that the stars lose their luster. Surah At-Tur, the 52nd surah, ayat 32 to 49. And when the Exalted One has said, do they command you with convoluted expressions such as this? Meaning, the elders of the Quraysh described these revelations as convoluted. Yet Allah showed them many dreams and convoluted them on account of their mixing truth with falsehood. It was said to Amr ibn al-As, "What is the matter with your people that they don't believe?" And already Allah has given them intellects. He said, those are intellects that are almost like animals and nothing more. They have not been given the success. Or do they really believe the foolishness in that which they believe? So they have been given convoluted by leaving that which should be accepted, by leaving the call to faith. And when the evidence has come to them, they deny it out of wrongdoing and falsehood, even though the truth is manifested to them. Don't their intellects indicate this? Isn't forbearance a sign of good intellect, yet they claim it? Or do they say he has fabricated it, meaning he's brought the Quran to be from his own self? How could this be possible? The matter is not like that. They claim that, but they don't believe in the Quran out of arrogance. Let them come with a speech like it, meaning in its composition, its form, and the likeness of its proclamations. Let them bring some likeness of it, if they are truthful, and if they believe that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ fabricated it. Or are they created from nothing? Meaning, are they created without a Lord that created them? Are they created without fathers and mothers, and they're like solid objects with no intellect? Are they created from nothing, like the skies and the earth? Is it not the case that they are not greater in creation than the skies and the earth? Because they were created from nothing. But the children of Adam and Adam were created from dust. Is it the case that humanity was created for nothing? Or were they created for no other reason or on account of being created as an accident? Or are they creators? Meaning, do they bring themselves about? Are they the creator, since they don't believe in a creator, and they don't believe that a creator commands and prohibits? But they're not certain of the truth. And the truth here is the oneness of Allah, His grandeur, and His ability to resurrect them. Do they have the treasures of the Lord with them? Meaning, do they control the rain and the sustenance? Said by Ibn Abbas. Do they have the prophethood? Said by Ikrimah. Do they know the unseen? Do they have the treasures of their Lord, of all the knowledge that can be known? Or do they think they're independent from their Lord? Or do they think that they have control over things? Or are they actually being lorded over where they are weak, as said by Ibn Abbas? So, those who have control may be lords that are lorded over, but they are weakened. Now, this ayah can be recited with both a sin, musaytirun, as well as a sad, musaytirun, based on narration. So do they have lords that do what they will, and they're under no command or prohibition? Or do they have a ladder in which they can scale the skies and listen to the revelation? Are they even listening to the revelation? Do they know what the truth is? Let them bring to pass their false claims with clear authority, meaning clear evidence, just as the same as the evidence that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ brought. Or do they declare that He, Allah, has daughters? And then do they say, you have sons? This is a refutation of them when they declare that Allah has daughters. Do they say that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wants some wage for what he does when he preaches the truth that he brings? Did he want some wage for bringing them to Islam? Is he doing them some favor? Or does he want some favor? Now, we've mentioned this ayah before in Surah At-Tur, the 9th Surah 98. Or do they have knowledge of the unseen? Are they waiting on what's coming to them? Do they know what's in the preserved tablet? Do they know that which is written? Have they been informed by other people, as said by Ibn Abbas? Do they have the knowledge of the unseen to know for sure that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ will die before them, which is one of the things they claimed? What is it that they have? They make their judgments, but the book is the clear judgment. And the judgment shall be made between them by the book of Allah and by the judgment of Allah. Or are they making plans? This refers to the plan that they made in the daughter Nedwa to kill the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And this refers back to Surah Al-Anfal, the 8th Surah, ayah 30. They are making plans. But those plans only harmed them. Because this ayah came around the time, or just before, the immigration to Al-Madinah and the end of these unbelievers at the Battle of Badr. Is there another God along with Allah that shall sustain them and preserve them from Allah? This clearly shows that the idols are not gods at all, because they can't benefit nor can they protect. And He, Allah, makes Himself and declares Himself holy and sacrosanct from their shirk and the rest of the ayah. If they were to see a portion of the sky come down right on top of them, on account of their kufr and rejecting faith, they would have said, oh, it's a portion of a low-lying cloud. Leave them alone until they meet the day that's coming to them. That day is the day of their death, but also the day of resurrection, which is preceded by the blowing of the first horn, in which they shall swoon. So they will die in a swoon, and they shall be overwhelmed. Just in the same way we can see examples in this earthly life when Allah says, وَخَرَّ مُوسَى صَعِقًا, when Musa swooned, when he asked his Lord to see him. Surah Al-Araf, the 7th Surah, 143. So the day of resurrection is a time of swooning, which people are overthrown. Scholars of commentary say that this ayah of swooning was abrogated by Surah At-Tur, the 9th Surah, 5, but this is not authentic, because the ayah is a threat from Allah that's fulfilled on the day of resurrection. On a day in which their plans will not benefit them at all, meaning this first day. Their plans that they made, they cannot push away the punishment of Allah. They shall not be helped. They shall not receive help from the wrath. And those who were oppressors, who associated partners with Allah, shall even have a punishment besides that, meaning before the day of resurrection. And that punishment is the punishment of the grave, as said by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. This is one of the ayat of evidence of punishment of the grave. They shall have the punishment of being killed on the day of the Battle of Badr, as said by Ibn Abbas and Muqatil. They shall suffer trials in this earthly life, as said by Al-Hasan, Al-Basri, and Ibn Zayd. They shall have the punishment of famine, as said by Mujahid. But most of them don't know, meaning they don't know that this is coming to them. So be patient with the judgment of your Lord and what He has declared for you. For you are bi'ayunina. Literally, bi'ayunina means under our eyes. But meaning that we see you. You are under our care. We shall preserve you. Scholars of commentary say the meaning of patience here has been abrogated by Surah At-Tur, the 9th Surah 5, but this is not correct because the context of the other ayat show this to be the case. Give praise to your Lord with glory whenever you stand, meaning give peace and blessings. And whenever you stand up from sleep, glorify Allah in some like fashion, as said by Ibn Abbas. Say, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, whenever you stand from your gathering when you finish your lecture. This was said by Ata and Sa'id ibn Jubair and Mujahid. Say, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa tabarak asmuka, wa ta'ala jadduka, wa la yanaha ghayruk, when you stand for prayer. As mentioned by Ad-Dahak, this ayah commands it. Glorify Allah when you when you get up from sleeping, as said by Hassan ibn Atiyah. Do so when you pray dhuhr, when you get up after qaylula, because a qaylula can happen before dhuhr, as said by Zayd ibn Aslam. Remember Allah with your tongue when you wake up from sleep and you decide to go and pray. And in the night, glorify Him, meaning pray Salat al-Maghrib and pray Salat al-Isha. Give Him His glory at the time that the stars lose their luster. We've already discussed some of this in Surah Qaf, the 50th Surah, ayah 40. So pray to Him when the stars lose their luster. And at the time that the brightness of the day is coming. Now in this salah, it's referring to the time that the stars lose their luster, because the daylight's blazing them out. This ayah is enjoining upon the worshipper to make sure to pray the 2 rak'ah before Salat al-Fajr. And this was stated by Ali ibn Abi Talib in a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, and is the understanding of the vast majority and collected in the Musnad. Second lesser position is that it is the prayer in the afternoon of Dhuhr. That's about Ad-Dahhak and Ibn Zayd. Close quote. So we have completed this surah, Surah At-Tur. And I say, أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين ولا إله إلا الله. Is there a question over Surah Al-Dhariyat or Surah At-Tur, what we covered today? Any question? Yes.
When you said bearing the horn of the day of resurrection and bearing the preserved tablets, what are the preserved tablets?
Okay, the question is regarding the angel Israfil alayhi salam being one of the bearers, he being the bearer of the horn of the day of resurrection and the preserved tablet. Alhamdulillah, the preserved tablet has been referred to throughout the Tafsir as the preserved tablet that all things from the beginning of creation till the day of resurrection and what is to happen is inscribed therein. This is the preserved tablet. He is the bearer of this. He is sort of its trustee, if you will. Any other question? No? In fact, for further detail on the preserved tablet, there's a hadith that runs in the collection of Al-Bakri, in which the first thing the law created was the pen, and he told the pen to write. The pen said, "What shall I write?" And he, Allah, said, "Write everything from this moment here until the day of resurrection." Now, that goes in with another hadith that is in Imam As-Suyuti's collection, in which it is mentioned that when a slave of Allah sees dreams, sometimes the angel Israfil alayhi salam is commanded to show him some information where he gets ilham or some vision of future events, and that's from the preserved tablet that Allah has told him to take and show it to. Sometimes the dreams are mixed up things in which are coming from his own soul, and sometimes the dreams are glad tidings of things coming which Allah has told the angel to show him from the preserved tablet. Right. So these are things that are being shown. Right. Is there any other final question? No? Okay. If there's no final question, inshallah, we complete here. And we are at the halfway point of the 53rd Hizb, right? Which means that we are more than five pages or more into the 27th Juz. So I say, Subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, innahu ghafurur rahim yarhamir rahimin, wa la ilaha illa Allah, wassalamu alaykum.